How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Samach Aleph, Daf 61 of Masechta Nazir. Friends, today we talk about Ovdei Kochavim and Avodim and their shaykhis to the halachis of being a Nazir. We're starting the ninth and final parak of Masechta Nazir today, and we begin with the Mishnah Anochim Ein Loim Naziris, that Ovdei Kochavim are not shaykh to being a Nazir. Noshim Avodim yesh Naziris, whereas women and Avodim are shaykh to Naziris, they can be Nazirs. Chomer ba'noshim ba'avodim, there is a stringency when it comes to a woman being a Nazir versus a fellow's wife being a Nazir versus a fellow's Avodim being a Nazir. Shu kofes avdo and a kofes ishto. He can, I don't know exactly what this means yet, I imagine the Gemara is going to get to it, but he can force his Eved to violate his Naziris, whereas he cannot force his wife to violate her Naziris. Now, says the Gemara, Katoni, Hanochim ein loim Naziris. So we had just said in the Mishnah that of the Kochavim, that Nochrim do not have, or not shaykh to Naziris. How do we know this? The Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught in a Braise, Dabra b'nei Yisrael, that it says by Nazir, what does it say? It says, Dabra b'nei Yisrael, v'matei Isha, ki yafli lindo neder Nazir la'azir l'Hashem. So it says, Dabra b'nei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel. Lo of the Kochavim, not to the of the Kochavim. V'matei the rabbis says Avodim, and when it says, and you will say to them, that comes to include Avodim. In fact, the Gemara, Lama likra, why do I need to include Avodim? Ha'amid kol mitzvah she'isha chayeves bo, eved chayev bo. No. We have a principle that any mitzvah that a woman is shaykh, is chayeves, a eved is oichet chayev. So memele, if a Naziris is shaykh to women, so memele it's shaykh to avodim oichet. Omer Rave, says Rave shayni ocha, that it's different over here when it comes to avodim, because Domer kol lesser isra al nafsho, that it says by nedarim that a neder is to make something asur upon one's soul. B'misha nafsho knuyelo, to somebody who owns their own soul. Yotza eved she'ein nafsho knuyelo, to the exclusion of an eved knaini, that his nefesh is not does not own his own nefesh. It belongs to the owner. Hoil ve'ein nafsho knuyelo. Emo gabe nazir nami lo kamash malon. So I might think that just like an Eved is not shaykh to Nidarim, so oichet an Eved should not be shaykh to Nazirus. So we say, no, an Eved can be a Nazir. Omer Mar, we said earlier, Dabra b'nei Yisrael v'lo ovdei kochavim. We said that by Nazirus, it says that speak to Bnei Yisrael to the exclusion of Ovdei Kochavim, that Ovdei Kochavim are not shaykh to Nazirus. V'cholechet d'chsiv Yisrael Ovdei Kochavim lo. What? I don't understand. Whenever it says Yisrael in the Torah, it means to the exclusion of Ovdei Kochavim, but I'll bring a raya fakert. V'agabe arachin, when it comes to arachin, who could tell me what arachin is? Arachin is if you say, I'm going to donate the erech of a certain person to the Beis HaMikdash. That is different than saying that I'm going to give the damim the value of that person, right? The damim is how much, you would pay for that person if they would be sold in the market as a slave. But erech, on the other hand, is something else. It's erech is a fixed amount based on age and gender. So when it comes to arachin, so it says Dichsiv Dabra b'nei Yisrael, speak to the b'nei Yisrael. V'tanya, we learn in the Braise, b'nei Yisrael ma'arichin v'nov de'kchav ma'arichin, that while only the b'nei Yisrael can be ma'arich, only a yid can say, can pledge an erech to the Beis HaMikdash. However, yachol yuhu lo yuhu ne'erachin. Is it possible that Ovdei Kochavim cannot be ne'erachin? Is it possible, right? The shaila is, can a yid go to an Ovdei Kochavim and say, I'm going to give the erech of this Ovdei Kochavim to the Beis HaMikdash? We say Tam Lomer Ish. It says, yeah, because it says Ish. From there we learn that Ovdei Kochavim can be ne'erachin. So we see that even though it says Bnei Yisrael by arachin, still Ovdei Kochavim are shaykh to erech, in that you can be ma'arich the value of an Ovdei Kochavim to the Beis HaMikdash. So we say, yeah, but still, shiny hacha, it's different when it comes to Nazirus. The Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, L'avav v'le'ima lo yitamu, that the pasuk says by a Nazir that one of the halachos of a Nazir is that a Nazir cannot become tamei to his father or his mother. B'mishi yesh lo av, which means that memele, a Nazir has to be somebody who has a father, so that the halacha of not becoming tamei to your father is shaykh. So yotza oved kochavim to the exclusion of oved kochavim she'ein lo av, that right, who does not have a father. Lamai, what do you mean an oved kochavim doesn't have a father? Ilem l'inyan Yerusha. If we're talking about that, well, oved kochavim do not inherit their father. Ve'amr B'chia bar Oven Amr B'Yochanan. B'Chia bar Oven says never B'Yochanan. Oved kochavim yoresh es oviv. Dvar Teir, that an oved kochavim does inherit his father. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Ki Yerusha le'esav nasati es harseir, that the Eibishter gave the mountain of Seir to as an inheritance to Esav. So we see that right, that the oved kochavim, that by Esav there is a concept of Yerusha. So what does it mean that an oved kochavim doesn't have a father and therefore can't be a Nazir? So Ella b'misha muzar al kibbud of v'aim. No, I mean somebody who has the mitzvah of kibbud of v'aim. A yid has the mitzvah of kibbud of v'aim. An oved kochavim does not, and therefore it's not an oved kochavim is not shaykh to nazirus. Miksiv kabed avicha gabe nazir. But what do you mean? What does kibbud of v'aim have to do with nazir? It just says, right, la'aviv lima lo yutam. It doesn't have anything to do with kibbud of v'aim. It doesn't say anything about that. Elo amar kra la'aviv lima lo yutama b'misha yesh lo tumano. So rather, forget about the aviv part. Don't focus on the father part. Sure, an oved kochavim has a father, but it says la'aviv lima lo yutama, that oved kochavim, that a nazir cannot become tameh. So obviously, we're talking about somebody who's shaykh to tumah bichlal. Right, whereas Yotza Oved Kochavim she'ein lo Tumah, but an Oved Kochavim on the other hand doesn't have the halachis of Tumah. Minolim Teleis Lu Tumah. Who says that an Oved Kochavim doesn't have Tumah? To Amar Kra. Well, because the pasuk says V'ish Asher Yitma V'lo Yischato V'nichsa Nefesh Ahi Mitoch Hakol. That the pasuk says that V'isha. I'm going to read that again. V'ish Asher Yitma V'lo Yischato. A fellow becomes tamei and he does not go to the mikvah, and then he goes to the beit, and he does not get sprinkled with the paraduma and become tahor. Well, I guess if it's tumas mace, but if somebody who's tamei goes into the Beis Hamikdash, v'nichrusa nefesh ayi mitoch hakol, so it's chiv karis. So mishi yesh lo kol. So we see that tuma is shaykh to somebody who has a kol, who's part of the congregation of Israel. Yotze zeh she'ein lo kol, to the exclusion of an oved kochavim who's not in the congregation of Israel. But maybe all the pasuk is saying is that an oved kochavim who goes into the Beis Hamikdash, right, would not be, maybe what it's saying is that you have to be part of the congregation of Israel to be chayiv karis, but there still would be a concept of tumah and tyra for oved kochavim, right? We're not throwing out everything regarding an oved kochavim, even tumah. So Amakra v'Izra atar ala tomei. Well, the pasuk says by becoming, right, by the para aduma, it says the tahor person fellow will sprinkle on the tamei fellow. So kol sheyesh lo tyra yesh lo tuma. So we want to use that juxtaposition to say that only people who have the concept of the para aduma and becoming tahor are also shaykh to tuma. V'chol she'ein lo tyra ein lo tuma. But somebody who's not shaykh to becoming tahor, to the process of purification, is not shaykh to contamination either, to becoming tamei. Ve'im etayru deleka. But one second, can we suggest that maybe, fine, they don't have tyre, but maybe there is tumah by ovdei kochavim? Omar kra v'ish asher yitma v'lo yischato. I guess we want to say that the pasuk that says ish asher yitma v'lo yischato, a person will become tamei, will not become purified. So we want to compare those two again and say that if there's no purification, then there's no contamination either, and therefore we want to say that ovdei kochavim are not shaykh to tumah, and if they're not shaykh to tumah, so then memele, if they're not shaykh to tumah, so then memele nazirus, which part of the halachas of nazirus is that you can't become tamei, is not shaykh to ovdei kochavim, because ovdei kochavim aren't shaykh to tumah bichlal. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Omer says, Rav Acha bar Yaakov shayni hacha. So going right, we had said earlier that ovdei kochavim are shaykh to inheritance. So now it says Rav Acha bar Yaakov shayni hacha do Omer kavin is nachaltem osam of nechem achrechem, that actually when it comes right of the kochavim are not shaykh to all kinds of inheritance, because in terms of bequeathing their avodim, they don't bequeath their avodim. Only somebody who is able to bequeath an eved is shaykh to tumah. But somebody who does not bequeath an eved is not shaykh to tumah. Only yidden bequeath avodim to their children, but of the kochavim do not bequeath their avodim to their children, and therefore they're not shaykh to tumah either. But if that's the case, then it shouldn't be shaykh to avodim either, who don't inherit their avodim to other people. So they shouldn't be shaykh either. Okay, it's a kasha. Hello, my Rava rather says Rava. No, so going back to the question of how come Ovdei Kochavim are excluded from Nazirus, right? Because it says Dabra B'nai Yisrael by Nazir, so we want to say not B'nai Yisrael to exclude the Ovdei Kochavim. However, as we said, by Arachin though, it says Dabra B'nai Yisrael, and yet Ovdei Kochavim are still shaykh to Arachin in that their value, their erech, can be given to the Beis HaMikdash. So why are we saying that Ovdei Kochavim have no place in Nazirus? So it says Rava, look, well, I understand how it works by Arachin. Shneimar, the pasuk says B'nai Yisrael marichin ve'no Ovdei Kochavim marichin. That when it says B'nai Yisrael by Arachin, so it means that B'nai Yisrael can, pledge the erech of a person to the Beis HaMikdash, but Ovdei Kochavim cannot. But Yachol Lo Yunei Arachin, is it possible that Ovdei Kochavim also cannot be evaluated? So Talmud Ish, no, when it says Ish, it comes to include Ovdei Kochavim in being their evaluation going to their erech going to the Beis HaMikdash. Hacha B'nai Yisrael Nazir Mevin Korban, Ven Ovdei Kochavim Nazir Mevin Korban. But if we want to draw a parallel and use a similar construct by Nazirus, we would have to say that the Yidden who are Nazirim, they are Nazirim, and they also bring a Korban at the end of their Nazirus. Ve'eno Ovdei Kochavim Nazir Mevin Korban. Whereas Ovdei Kochavim, even if they would be Nazirs, they wouldn't, however, offer a Korban at the end. Yachol Af Lo Yu Nazirin Klas. So is it possible that maybe Ovdei Kochavim shouldn't be able to be Nazirim at all? Talmud Omer Ish. No, it says Ish. To say that no, that they can be Nazirim, but just that they don't bring korbanos. But Amrei imishum korban lav me'ocha nafkale. But the thing is, of the Kochavim not being shaykh to bringing a korban Nazir isn't learned out from here, from Dabra B'nai Yisrael, Elamei Hosam. Rather, it's learned out from a different pasuk, Le'ola, Prat Le'Nazir, to Rabbi Yosef Glili, that we have a pasuk that says, Ish mi Beis Yisrael min ager b'Yisrael sheyakav korbanu l'chol nedvem v'chol nedvos ma she'akrivu la'Hashem le'ola. That we have a pasuk that says by korbanos ish, that anybody can bring a korban, even an Ovdei Kochavim can bring a korban to the Eibishter. But it says le'ola. It says specifically for an ola. What does that mean, le'ola? Prad le'naziris, to exclude the korban naziris. So we already know from that pasuk that an Ovdei Kochavim doesn't bring a korban nazir, and therefore I don't need the pasuk of Bnei Yisrael to the exclusion of Nachrim of Ovdei Kochavim to say that Ovdei Kochavim do not bring the korban. And therefore this sort of construct that we wanted to say, that maybe when it says Bnei Yisrael, it only excludes Ovdei Kochavim from bringing the korban nazir, so that they could be nazirim but just not bring the korban. We know that from this other pasuk of where it says le'ola. So Ema Bnei Yisrael nazir nazirus olam v'en Ovdei Kochavim nazir nazirus olam. So maybe let's suggest what it means is that only Yidden can be a nazirus olam, right? A nazirus that is kind of for the rest of their life. But whereas Ovdei Kochavim don't have that concept. Yachol ayu nazirim. So is it possible that maybe Ovdei Kochavim can't be nazirim at all? Talmud Omer Ish, and therefore it says Ish to say no, they can be nazirim, just not nazir olam. But Omer Rabbi Yochanan, miksev nazir olam. But it doesn't say anywhere in the pasuk specifically a nazir olam. So why should we think that it's just limited to a nazir olam? So the Gemara suggests Ema Bnei Yisrael Madirim B'neim B'nazir V'Ovdei Kochavim Madirim B'neim B'nazir. So maybe what it means is that sure, both a Yid and a Ovdei Kochavim could be a Nazir. However, the difference is that a Yid can even make his son a Nazir, whereas an Oved Kochavim can't do that. Yachol lo yu Nazirim, so it's possible that maybe Oved Kochavim can't actually be Nazirs at all, actually. So Tam Lomar Ish, no, it says Ish, they can actually be Nazirs, just they can't make their sons Nazirim. Ha'am Rabbi Yochanan lacha ibn Nazir. Rabbi Yochanan says that that's halacha l'Moshe Misinai by Nazir, that a fellow can make his son a Nazir. So why would I need the pasuk to teach me that when it says Bnei Yisrael, it means that they can make that Yidden can make their sons Nazirs. That's halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Ema b'nei Yisrael megalchen al nazirus avian ve'en ovdei kochavim megalchen al nazirus avian. Maybe it's possible that it means that only Yidden, as we've learned in the past, that in some cases, if the father died, the son can use the korbanos of his father. Maybe that's only shaykh to a Yid, but not to a ovdei kochavim. So Yachol lo Yehu Nazirin, is it possible that an Oved Kochavim then can't be a Nazir at all? Talmud Omer Ish, no, it says Ish to include them, but Itmar Amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha ibn Nazir. But again, Rabbi Yochanan says that's also halacha l'Moshe Misinai, so I wouldn't need a pasuk to teach me that. So therefore, we don't necessarily have a construct, right? So we said that Ovdei Kochavim are not shaykh to Nazirus, right? We wanted to try to say, yeah, but by Arachin, right, it's because it says Bnei Yisrael, but by Arachin it says Bnei Yisrael, and Ovdei Kochavim are shaykh in some way to Arachin, so can't we say the same by Nazirus? But we haven't managed to find a way in which kind of that we would be able to include of the Kochavim by Nazirus. Friends, okay, that was Daf Samach, Daf 60, or Samach Aleph. Can't remember, Samach Aleph, Masechta Nazir. We learned that of the Kochavim are not shaykh to Nazir, Nashim v'avodim are. Friends, peace out, bye.